Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, before I introduce the panel, we have now got channel memberships on Nathan Oakley 1980. So as and when people join, I will shout them out on the live show. It's only been less than a day since this has actually been enabled, but there's been an overwhelming number of people who've joined already, so I'm going to shout all of you out. Thank you very, very much to all of you who've become channel members on Nathan Oakley 1980 channel. Most recently, as you can probably see on screen, Christopher Lees, who joined during this show, so thank you very much indeed. Good Servant, Douglas Kirkwood, Jordan for America, Henrik, Ian Matheson, Flat Assassin, Colin Dresser, Jen8208, Tony Drake, Flat World Logic, Chow Young Cat, Unicorn Laser Eyes, Michael No E. Bear Jones, Earth is Seriously Flat, Eagle Plane and Anchor, Del West Watson, Awesome Austin, and Super Looming Hyena, who was the very first channel member. And at request of Eagle Plane and Anchor, he gets a second shout out because he's also one of my Patreons, as are a few others. I'm not going to lie, but he specifically asked for 2 shout outs, so there he goes, he gets both. Now, as I say, we are joined by a few people in both Discord and G Plus panel, so I'll say a quick hello to, first and foremost, 10th Man and Righteous Force in G Plus. How are you both doing?
Wonderful.
Doing good. Good morning.
Good morning. And we're also joined by M1, Mind Warped, Ranscorp, and Searly. 1, 2, 3, is that right?
That's correct.
Good to have you.
Good morning,
Thank you.
good morning, good morning.
Searly?
Sleary.
Sleary. When it's greyed out, it's hard to read. Sleary. Good to have you. Any signs of
No
Earth
problem.
curvature?
Thank you.
Not from Yucca Valley.
Not from the Yucca
Not
Valley.
from Doniana.
Yeah, Yucca Valley. It's near 29 Palms and Palm Springs.
No, I have heard of it, unlike the one that you mentioned the other day. Any signs of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Nope.
Happy New Year, by the way, all of you in
Nope.
Discord and anybody watching live. Happy New Year. Happy 2020 to you all.
That's right.
Yeah,
Happy
no.
New Year.
No axial rotation in 2019 and none so far in 2020.
Right, scientific evidence of gravity.
That's a very good question, and they have not answered that one, so no.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
A beautiful light in the sky, but no measurement of it.
Go on, was someone in Discord trying to get a word in? Take a mind dwarfed off mute. Yeah. Where were we? Any single viable
Light in the sky.
hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Nope. None.
Nope. None whatsoever.
How are the ballers even supposed to answer these questions? They're like dead end.
They don't even know what the scientific method is until they come on this show and go in circles for 45 minutes and still get it wrong.
Yeah, isn't that just the point though, Righteous? So they should be in a position to go to someone like Danny Faulkner, Dr. Daniel Faulkner, and ask one of these questions and get a rapid response to demolish us flat earthers. But you're like, well, how are they even supposed to answer this? Well, the answer should be easy. If we lived on a sphere and we had gravity and we had a measured distance to the sun without assumptions of Venus being the same R value as Earth.
I think the understanding that in the true scientific method, you have to manipulate the independent variable. Well, if you could use at least one brain cell to figure out if you can't manipulate an independent variable, then you can't, it doesn't fall under the scientific method. So it's not doable, but they don't even go there. They say, well, the people in the lab coats told us they did. Okay, that's fine. That's one thing. Now show us the hypothesis, show us the actual experiment. Oh, well, they measured Venus and this. Well, how'd you do that?
Where were we? Any evidence of the R value itself, Earth radius?
Nope.
Hey, Arwin.
Hello.
Good morning,
New Year.
Owen.
Good morning,
Happy New
Armin.
Year.
Happy New Year.
Tom over here as well.
Good stuff.
Yeah, the R value, no, they
How about a
to their
self?
model.
Yeah, we know they can assume their model. What about a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth? And hey, B Rain, good to have you. Rain. No molten iron
What?
cores.
Well, they would have to be able to dig that far down to prove it, and they haven't dug more than 8 miles.
Any evidence that you can have a gas pressure without a container?
The best one.
Yeah.
You know what gets them
some
on?
kind of barrier.
Good,
Go on.
good morning, y'all.
Good morning.
This is the one where they get stuck on the gradient.
Hello, what is it? Execute 72. Have you? Earth to execute 72. Can you hear us? Enthusiastic Discord server. I think that's it. Did I cover everything? I think so.
Did you cover axial rotation?
Yeah.
Yep.
What about
I
the
have a word
hypothesis?
about it.
Go ahead, Rebel.
Yeah, so I'm often thinking about sort of proverbial elephant in the room as far as axial rotation is concerned. And I haven't heard people bring it up, and that is centrifugal force. And to my mind, at the diameter or radius, given the radius and the rotation, we should be flying off at like a speed of sound. The force should be immense. Like if you imagine you in a merry-go-round, right? Going, I don't know, one revolution every 10 seconds, right? And you would, let's say, one revolution every 5 seconds, right? You would feel it. Your body would be sucked to the outside, right? Stuck to the outside. If you walk to the center of the merry-go-round, you're going to hardly feel anything. Why is that? Well, it's because of the surface speed of the radial path, correct?
Yeah, we
So
should
the
feel
bigger,
it.
so the faster the speed at the surface of the radial path, or the radial path, that's a surface speed, the greater the centrifugal force. So it has nothing to do with the speed necessarily, but it's in conjunction with the speed to the circumference. So the bigger the circumference, is for the same RPM, the greater the centrifugal force. So at the distance, let's say whatever the presupposed center of the Earth to the surface of the Earth, whatever that distance is, for the one rotation every 24 hours, the force at which we should be flying off to space is unimaginable. It's not, you would not feel it. This is complete baloney. This is an elephant.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Somebody has to, like, I plan to do some experiments, real scientific experiments, to do with centrifugal force. Have a device that measures the force that is being pressed to the outside, and measure the distances. Have a device with a smaller diameter, with a fixed RPM, and then bigger diameter with the same RPM, and measure the differences between the forces between the smaller to the bigger diameter. And then we can extrapolate the RPM and distance, the radius of the Earth, and calculate in pounds per square meter the amount of force that would be applied any body on the surface of the Earth. And I'm telling you, it's going to be astronomical.
Adam's already calculated this, you appreciate. Adam from Iron Realm Media. He once did this. It's probably 18 months ago, but I don't doubt for a second he still has all of his calculations. Next time I see him, I'll remind him and I'll ask him to bring it up again, because he'll just, at a pinch, just go and get them, I hope.
Yeah, I've heard people mentioning it, but I don't think the calculations were correct at all. And yes, it was probably about 2 years, maybe a year and a half ago.
Yeah, something like that.
Can I play devil's advocate just for dialogue?
Yeah.
What's the name of the guy speaking, so I know how to address him?
Rebel.
Rebel. Hey, Rebel. How you doing?
Hey, Tim. Good.
So they'll say...
You should be nominated for Pawn of the 2019 year. Man of Pawns.
Man of Puns? I appreciate it. I got my first Patreon for puns. Rim speed. So they'll say to rim speed, because you've been on the show, I'm sure, before. Oh, it's contained by gravity, and the atmosphere is stuck to the Earth like Velcro, and goes with the rotation of the Earth. So that's why you don't feel it.
Yeah, let's say we'll calculate, and I don't know exact numbers, but to my reckoning, the numbers should be astronomical.
Well, you're right. They are, because you live in reality, and that's what happens. And if the Earth was rotating, that's exactly what would happen.
Right. So if the Earth was rotating, then you would feel the differential between standing on the equator versus being closer to the poles, to either pole.
Correct.
And the difference would be, the difference would be not only measurable, but it would be immense. If the gravity is strong enough to counteract the centrifugal force, which we know it isn't, but even if given that, the gravity should be exponentially stronger on the equator versus poles.
Sorry, what's gravity?
No, it isn't.
What's gravity?
Whatever the 10th man presupposed it to be.
Oh, right. We're just going to concede that they'll come up with a just so story of this thing called gravity, and it'll be some bullshit about a force.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Rebel, this is why George Musser interview was great on a secondary note, which is when pressed to explain gravity, the word magical. And this guy who wrote for Scientific American, you would think, science.
Yeah, they all have to retort to that, right?
Yeah, so he resorts to magical.
Magic.
So they'll say it's a magical force of gravity that is allowing us to stay on and not be spun off at the rim speed.
Right.
They can't prove it, but
It's inevitable. Any one of them opening their mouths, it's either they're off by 10 to 120th power, or it's magic, or we don't know, or it's not a force, or it can be a force, or think of it as imagine. It's all use your imagination and you'll get it. Like from basically the time we were able to comprehend speech, this is what we were told. I remember vividly during the physics classes, and I grew up in Soviet Russia, I always would have to interrupt the teacher to try to get them to explain to me what gravity is. What do you mean if the object goes through space without interacting with matter, it'll go forever? Like those concepts just didn't stick with me. Like, why, how is it possible that somebody lives on the other side of the globe? That means, they are upside down. Can you explain it to me? So, and I was always sort of like a laughing stock of the class because I felt weird. Like, why are people asking questions? Why am I the only one? Why am I the only one not getting it? And later to find out that really nobody got it. I'm asking questions, my peers, they don't know. They're like, just whatever the teacher says, you just shut up and listen. I'm like, no, I want to understand what they mean by that. What is it they are talking about? How is it a moon doesn't fly off while spinning around the Earth? Why is it moon is not being attracted by the sun when it's at the closest side to the sun rather than the furthest on the other side of the Earth? Like those questions just bugged me from the very beginning of conception of what the solar system is, their model. And I just had to let go at some point because there were no answers.
Well, it's not that there's no answers. You're cross-referencing it with your reality. Their description of what happens in their model with their just so story about what gravity is and does in their model is inconsequential. It's not our reality.
Exactly. But I had to like forget about it completely up until flat Earth topic came up. What was it, 2012 for the first time? Then I'm like, yeah, finally somebody's talking about it. I mean, I didn't have a concept of flat Earth, but I had a whole bunch of questions about heliocentric model for sure. I know there were bodies buried somewhere. I just didn't bother thinking about it and figure out, okay, what's going on. So anyway, that's my rant.
Excellent.
Nathan, I got something if you're willing to switch gears.
Yeah, I thought Arwin had wanted to add something. Just clicking, Arwin. Did you want to add something? But then whoever it was that just said that, go ahead.
No, sorry, I was just responding to chat.
Okay, can you hold off, Arwin?
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead, Sleary.
Great, thanks. Just wanted to talk about, I heard you speak the other day about your stack of bricks, and I thought it was an awesome idea. Placing a single brick on the plane and then, continuously stacking single bricks high as, a skyscraper, and you'd be able to make it out. And so kudos to you. I thought that was awesome. But I shared that with a friend of mine, and he had some critiques of it. And I just want to see, if I actually understand what you said, because when you talk about angular resolution limits, are you talking about the angle from the bottom of the object to the top of the object that meets your eye? Is it that large angle that you're referring to?
Yeah, your angle is going to be based on the deck, isn't it? So that's going to be the one line between you and target that's essentially fixed. You can't look beyond the line of that land because it's obscuring your view downwards. So that's your starting angle. So if you work up from that to the brick and your angle is too small to see, then you're not going to see the brick. But as you work your way up from the deck to the top of the skyscraper, then you're going to have a much wider angle. In the same way as if you were stood right next to it and you look at the you look between you and you're only, 100 yards away from the skyscraper. As you look at the bottom of it, and you literally put both of your hands out in front of you. So the bottom, your left hand is going to be parallel to the ground roughly in your field of vision, pointing at the bottom of the brick, and your top hand will point at the top of the brick. Well, there's your angle to the brick at 100 yards. Well, as that gets further and further away, your hands are going to get closer and closer together as that angle gets narrower and narrower and narrower between the deck and the top of the brick. But your angle to the top of the skyscraper, if you now move your top hand to the top of the skyscraper, obviously that's a much wider angle. Well, your angular limitation's only going to apply to the most limited angle, which is at the bottom.
Right. Okay. So, and that's how I think that's how I said it to my friend. But he said, what about the angle of the width? So if you were to replace your stack of bricks with a string of silk, you would have the same angle. You know, I could point it to the bottom and the top of this large string of silk, but he was making the point that the angular limitation would now be the width of the silk and have nothing to do with the flat plane.
Well, no, your angle, when you're talking about hair, for example, you can reach and breach an angular limitation for a hair without reaching the horizon, because it easily gets too small to see before you reach the horizon. My examples are using the horizon and the deck because that's what limits your angle. Now, if you're going to compare that to a horizontal angle, well, you've got an infinite angle. You've got a full circle all the way around you, 360 degrees. There's no limitation to the angle left to right. Well, there might be. I mean, you might be in an alleyway, you know, but beyond being preposterous. Right. The deck's what's limiting your angle, isn't it? But they claim the deck is the curve of the Earth obscuring your view as opposed to a limited angle.
I'm sorry, there is limited angle in all directions, Nathan. We're talking about diffraction limit?
Yeah, for a hair, yeah. The hair itself, as you look at it and get further away, across the horizontal, yeah, you're going to reach and breach the diffraction limit. But in terms of the width of a building, for example, the width of it, if it's the same width as it is height, well, you've got no restriction left to right. But across the deck, at a distance, you have. That's why you lose things bottom first. That's the most limited angle. It's going to reach and breach the diffraction limit the soonest because it's the smallest angle. It is as simple as that.
All right. Just curious. Thank you for your help.
It's a pleasure. It's one of my favourite examples, like a real eureka moment when I managed to boil it down in such a way as to explain with a fairly succinct description of why something will disappear bottom first. And you can get somebody, a globehead, to concede that journey by saying, well, a brick at 100 yards, can you see it? Yes. What about a mile? No, it's too small. Well, what about if I pile a skyscraper's worth of bricks on top of it? Can I see the skyscraper? Yeah. Well, the brick at the bottom you still can't see. It's too small because of the limited angle. Ergo, one brick missing from the skyscraper. Fuck all to do with Earth curve. Everything to do with the angular limitation, which is excluded from their calculations. So they will say, skyscraper, 100 feet. Well, how much in feet and inches is missing? Who cares? It's not going to change as you get further away. It's always going to be the same size skyscraper. But in my example, when you're putting your hands out in front of you to represent the angle that you can see of the skyscraper, as you get further away, your hands get closer together as it gets closer to the horizon. Well, that's the angular size. Something they completely ignore in their calculations. Reducing with distance. Until eventually, the bottom angle is too small and disappears completely. Well, that's everything to do with the angular relationship and the diffraction limit against the deck. And sod all to do with an obstruction claimed to be Earth curve when you ignore the fact that things get smaller as you get further away from them. Their angular size, not actual size, not feet and inches with a tape measure. That's not how you see.
Hey, Slurry, did he ever answer your question about the brick, or did he take you to the silk and not come back to the brick?
Hey, can I ask you something?
I think 10th Man just wants to know how that concluded with Sleary's opponent, who offered a rebuttal in form of silk on a horizontal axis and whether or not that angle would be limited or not. But the question from 10th Man to Sleary is, did he come back to you about the brick thing disappearing bottom first and comparable to the Earth curve calculator that ignores all angular relationships?
I'll tell you why I asked that. I'll wait for his answer first. Okay, well, here's why I asked that. When I walk into my greenhouse in the morning, the spiders have cast their webs overnight, and I have almost 100-foot greenhouse where these tubs are in, and I can't see it because of the lighting and everything else, but I could still see everything. And I just run into these webs that are coming from the poles above. I mean, they're so invisible. So silk and spider webs resonate with me because I don't have to look as far as the horizon or as far as my eyes could see. I can't even see those things when they're 5 feet in front of me because they're almost invisible anyway. So that was a very poor example to use something that you could not see 5 feet in front of you as to something on as far as the horizon allows you to see from the bottom up, that brick getting too small to see. It was a very poor example, in my opinion, to use silk. And avoid answering the question.
Yeah, stuff gets too small to see. It's nothing to do with the Earth curve. They've just hijacked that fact and called it Earth curve.
Stuff gets too small to see. That's so clear.
Dropped now, so he obviously had some sort of issue.
All right. Well, what was that question somebody wanted to come in?
Yeah, Rebel here. Yeah, when you give this example for the first time, I thought it was absolutely excellent example. But as I hear you explaining just now, maybe I misheard you, but I have a couple of questions, if you don't mind, Nathan.
Not at all.
When you're talking about a limited angle vertically versus horizontally being unlimited, I don't see how that's relevant. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah. As you look left and right, there's nothing obscuring what's in the way. So on screen now, we've got a picture of a lake and a mountain. Well, as I look to the left or to the right, there's nothing in the way of my view. But as I look down, I've reached a point where I can't open up my angle anymore. The deck's in the way. So that is what's creating the angle, the thing that stops you seeing. Now, to draw a comparison on the horizontal, if I put a wall up either side of my vision, then suddenly I'd have the exact same effect on the horizontal. The wall that I'm standing, if I'm standing in an alleyway, then I can force a diffraction limit on the horizontal because there's a wall to my left and right that can force either of those angles looking down to become too limited because there's an obstruction, the wall. Well, in this instance, there's no walls left and right of me. I can turn around 360 degrees, and but for a couple of trees that might block my view, there's no limitation to the angle. I can just turn around 360 degrees and see all around me. But I can't look below the deck. That's the end of that angle. That's where the angle begins as you're looking out across that. That is what I'd say is my arm put out across, pointing at what I'm looking at. But I can't go lower than that. I can't open up the angle downwards. The deck's in the way.
So right, is it the angle then the cause, or the obstruction, the diffraction, the interference is the cause of limitation?
But one's a consequence of the other. I mean, I don't know off the top of my head. Typically, Zach jumps in like Superman when it comes to me quoting the Rayleigh criterion because I don't know the maths by heart. And I don't need to. It's not relevant. There is a limit. Let's call it 0.2 of an arc second or whatever. It doesn't matter. There is a point that beyond which things are too small to see and will vanish. Like your hair example or your silk example. You can do it really easily. Back away from a hair until you can't see it anymore. A single hair. It happens real quick. Eventually it's too small to see. Your angle to that hair is too limited to make it out. It reaches and breaches a point of interference. where in a camera, one pixel and the pixel below merge into two. In other words, you can't resolve the data anymore. You've got interference, diffraction, the point where it's not resolvable anymore. And that's based on the angle you can see it at.
Hey, talking about which,
But you can zoom in,
Nathan?
and
Hear
that
me?
angle will become larger, and you might be able to see the item again.
No, it's more complicated than that.
Yeah, I guess what I'm having
let me
trouble
just address that. Sorry,
with
Rebel.
the wording.
No, the Rayleigh criterion is calculated based on the aperture. So the bigger the aperture, the lower your diffraction limit will become. In other words, yes, you can see smaller stuff. If you let more light in, you can increase your resolution with a greater size aperture. The hole that you're looking through, in my case, my iris, or in the case of a telescope, a giant, great big hole. Well, that increases your diffraction limit. And the change of, I think it's f-stop in a camera, would have the same effect. So yes, you can increase your hole, the aperture size, and therefore reduce the point at which it will disappear, ergo bring it back. But ultimately, for every device, there will be a point where that aperture can no longer resolve data. Hence the argument back in 2015, oh, you just go to the beach, you look at a boat, you zoom in and you bring it back. Globe head response. No, it will reach a point where you can't bring it back anymore. Well, yeah, you can go and get a telescope with a bigger aperture and bring it back again until it disappears from the telescope. But eventually, for every single device, every hole, there's a point, a limit, the diffraction limit, calculable in the Rayleigh criterion, where you will lose resolution.
This is why they don't allow for perspective in any of their calculations.
Well, they've called it Earth curve. That effect causes things to disappear bottom first. Against the deck, the most limited angle will be the thing that vanishes through the diffraction limit and vanishes from your vision quickest. Ergo, things will disappear from bottom up at the horizon. Well, that's not Earth curve.
But it disappears due to refraction, due to interference with the surface of the Earth, whatever the water, it would be a water or something else, right? In other words, if in the example of the brick that you give, which is excellent, by the way, but when the brick is at the point where it's limited by the resolution, what I imagine in my head, well, if I remove, just imagine that, just a thought experiment. If I all of a sudden remove the floor, right, would I be able to see a brick?
Yeah, that's like going up a ladder. You're widening your angle to that brick by increasing your elevation. So that's like pushing the floor down. Well, no, you're going up, but that's what it's doing. Where I'm standing at the shore of the lake and I put my hand out to represent the angle I can see down, if I climb a tree, that's going to lower my bottom arm that's representing the angle to the brick. So an increase of your angle will increase your angular resolution. Therefore, you can bring it back by climbing a tree. That's sod all to do with seeing over an obstruction that's misrepresented by using actual size when you're looking at things. Angular size.
But you still have the problem of when things get further away, they're going to reduce in size. So just like when you're on an airplane, you look out the window and you see several other airplanes, say one being further away than the other and then one real close, and say they were all the same type of airplane, 747s, or jetliners of some type. You can see the size difference of the airplanes. The one being furthest away is reducing in size because you can't see forever. And you don't even have a deck there. You're just in the middle of the sky. So everything will get smaller in size. But when you introduce a deck and put that thing there, the angular resolution just knocks it out quicker. But if you get up higher, like he says on the ladder, you're changing your angle to it, so you're going to see that brick sooner. How can I put it? Where you lose it on the deck, if you go up higher, you'll see it. At the point you're losing it on the deck, if you go up higher, you'll see it. But if you put that brick further out, then you're going to have to go higher and higher to see it. Correct?
Just before you answer, shout out to Godzilla. He says maybe the Globies will. Let's read it on the other screen. Maybe the Globies will finally see that it's flat now that it's 2020. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat, Godzilla. Really appreciate your support.
So is he saying that he wants them to see
And when they go
2020?
to talk about the stars, apparently these stars are multiple trillions or billions of millions of light years away. Yet somehow we can still see them. I mean, how's that possible?
That's Tycho
It's not
Brahe's.
possible.
That's Tycho Brahe's work or exasperation at the fact that they'd have to be enormous in order to see them. Well, that just ended up being reverse engineered into the absolutely colossal, ginormous stars that they claim we have. You know, Betelgeuse is massive, right? Well, no, it's out of necessity. They just reverse engineered a skeptic's criticism of that presumption of Earth being a sphere and a radius value attributed to Venus that's the same as Earth, based on assumption from Christian Huygens, and then Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion being applied. Well, that leaves you in a position where these lights would have to be astronomically big. Well, what do you know? You just make them astronomically big in a bullshit model that means nothing. You just say, yeah, they're huge. That's all you do. You can do what you like in a model.
The fact that we see them proves they're not that far.
Doesn't prove anything. We've got no reference. We only have the angular size. Well, that's a not actual size. Assuming these things have... I left that pause for Arwin. Sorry, 10th man. I thought that pause was going to get Arwin to talk about physicality, but he didn't.
Oh, that's fine. You can jump in.
Ah, there we go. Say again, Arwin. Hold on, 10th man.
Yes. I've been distracted most of the day. It's just so many trolls. Sorry. What were we talking about? Perspective, right?
No, we were talking about the angular size of the stars, and that's based on an assumption that they've got some sort of physicality to begin with.
Right, right. Yeah, well, all we really have to go on is the light that we can sense, and that seems to persist in a very specific pattern in relation to the position on the Earth. And yeah, well, Globers easily utilize the typical childlike imagination of just taking whatever you see as some kind of literal physical object. It's kind of how you start to explore the world with your consciousness normal. It's a very easy approach. But they basically overlay that onto the celestial lights for everyone, so that on top of just seeing lights, they will then automatically imagine that it is all these giant things out there and it's magical outer space realm. But it's based on the pre-assumption that it is physical in the first place, and there's no empirical evidence of that.
Thank you. Perfect, Arwin. Sorry, 10th man.
Hey, Arwin, didn't you have a picture of the sun a minute ago? Were you going to comment on that?
Yeah, I wanted to share that for a moment concerning the whole satellites issue.
Yeah, go ahead.
They thought, oh, just look at this site. This is a really good site for photographs of satellites, according to them. Yeah, the site is actually called Astrophoto. So it's described as Astrophotography as one word. It's kind of dubious. Anyway, I'll represent the picture again. Get it? There you go. Yeah, this was on there, and it was supposedly the proof of a photograph of a satellite. Well, transversing the sun, right? Well, does this look anything that you've ever seen optically in any way with filters or anything? Does this actually look like the sun to you? Looks like a giant CGI fireball to me, with little smoke top of it, something that nobody ever sees the sun like this, no matter how much filters you put over it. So it just seems like a giant CGI setup to me.
Paula's got pretty.
The moon looks like that sometimes.
Yeah,
when it's low
Paula's
in
got
the
pictures
sky.
like this. Sorry to cut you off.
Really?
Yeah, knowledge scavenger. No longer knowledge scavenger. She was when she made those videos. Bible literalist has got images like this. Believe it or not, check it out.
But
in her astronomy playlist. I don't know if she's got an astronomy playlist, but I'm going to pretend she has. I'm sure it's easy enough to find on her channel. Bible literalist.
Just let me plug her. She's used her own filters, right? Her own made filters?
Yes, just let me plug her. Bible literalist is the name of the channel. Subscribe today if I'm watching on the Rio Pal sticker link in.
Right. Well, anyway, this was one of the more remarkable ones among the photographs there, and I just still don't really see.
Hang on, Arwen. I think
singular
you got
satellite.
Arwen, you got a better point than that to show with this. How many satellites do they say are up there?
Hundreds of thousands. Going some stationary, some geo-orbital, and apparently some transpolar orbital.
Okay, so how come I'm able to see a satellite the size of
Tens
an
of thousands,
SUV?
not hundred.
Hold on.
How come I'm able to...
Sorry, you're getting rumpus from someone in Discord. Just hold on 1 second. He's nearly done. Go ahead, gentleman.
Arwen, put that picture back up, please.
It is up. It is. The audience can see it.
All right, I got it. Okay, I'll just do it here. So I see this ... and it's supposed to be a satellite. And satellites are usually the size of if it's a big one, an SUV or something to that effect. Okay, I see one. Now we're supposed to have hundreds and thousands of them, and I just see one here. And the sun doesn't. So let's just say, where are the other thousands of them, and why can't amateur photographers do the same?
So she has Paula, open brackets, Bible literalist, has a cosmology playlist from Chow Yun Cat. Thank you very much for letting me know. I suspected it was the case. I'm sure she's mentioned it in the past before, but thank you for the super chat, Chow Yun Cat, and the correction.
All right.
Yeah, this is just phony CGI to me, because if you're going to show satellites in space, you wouldn't use this picture if you were the powers to be. The powers to be would show all of them all the time and put this station to death, and they can't.
Right, and there's other issues too, just presupposing their model. I've done this a lot in my mind. I talked about it on this show today, on the Early Bird show today, even quite elaborately. There's issues with satellites and supposed satellite sightings. If they are objects and they have these solar panels and everything, which definitely double as reflectors, light reflectors, like little mirrors, then during the nighttime, you shouldn't be able to see any of it, ever, because what would make it visible? What light would be reflecting off it if it's at the dark side of the Earth and the sun is presupposedly on the other side? What would be shining off it in order for you to see any kind of light of it? That makes no sense. But at the same time, during the daytime, that sun is everywhere. So why don't we see these like flickering mirrors surrounding us, like artificial stars all the time? Satellites moving over us, glimmering. Even though it's very small, mirrors are known. If you use them, you can actually signal with a very small mirror miles and miles and miles away, because sunlight will reflect a long way with a small piece of mirror. So why don't we see during the day constant mirror flickering of satellites?
Well, we already know, based on the show last week, about Robert Bersano showing all the helium and all the balloon flights that were documented, and they go up. I mean, helium balloons are taking these satellites up. What's space?
I'm going to trim that out.
But that's another matter.
I'm going to
This
trim
is all
that out.
based on the model presupposition.
I'm going to re-release that on Sunday for the main channel audience. So that was played on Monday, I believe, and it went out only to the second channel. So obviously, those of you watching live, if you want to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate uncut and after show, then subscribe to my second channel, Nathan Oakley. There's a link in the info box below. However, once a week I'm going to trim out the best of those, and so far that's been the best uncut and after show so far. So there's a discussion about balloons, because we had Ben, shout out to Taboo Conspiracy 2 channel, so subscribe today, who we had on Ballbusters over on Quantum Eraser channel. So shout out to Quantum Eraser, subscribe today. And during that, it came up obviously about these balloon satellites and the various crashes, and I pointed out that Simpsons had alluded to it. Ben then went and found the clip and trimmed it together with all the people, minus the Brazilian one, that had encountered these downed satellites. But that spurred off the globeheads to start, moaning and bleating as they do, because it's so overtly obvious what's going on. They are balloons. So off the back of that, we then had the clip from about 2016, might have been 2017, of Robert Bassano going through I can't remember the name of the website, but I think it's a Swedish site that actually documents all of the NASA and various other ESA and other space agency launches of these, some of them space components, like Mir, that are going up on balloons. And it's, fairly over in terms of how he's found this information, and is just presenting it as is. And then he's gone through a lot of the balloons off that clip and just checked out what they actually were, what the components that were going up, and where they said they were going to space, right, on balloons. So I'll trim that out and I'll stick it out on Sunday for this audience, for the Nathan Oakley 1980 audience. So that'll get rebroadcast on Sunday. Just FYI. Just got a couple of questions. Is there any heliocentrists in the Discord server that can answer a couple of questions about the image that Arwen's currently presenting, if you can see it on the live stream? Anybody at all? Any volunteers? Okay. Well, I've just got a couple of questions. Number one, what is this? What is it? What are we looking at? I know it's the sun. I know what the sun is in terms of what I see, but what is it claimed to be if you're a heliocentrist? That's the first question. There's another question about the black bit. Nobody? No takers? Anybody want to play devil's advocate? So if I'm a heliocentrist, globe worshipping zealot, what is this?
Well, it's supposed to be a ginormous, perpetually igniting, is it hydrogen ball of hydrogen gas? That has so much pressure in the inside that it'll turn into a black hole.
There's a gas. A gas.
Yeah, igniting gas, fusion gas.
A gas. I see.
Mm-hmm.
I see.
Yep.
Gas. Right. And just my final question, then I'll take it off screen. Oh, we got some rumblings. Go ahead. Share your pain.
In a vacuum. That's all I said.
Oh, you beat me to it. So what's the black bit?
Sorry.
It's okay. What's this black bit? Claimed to be.
That's the part where the gravity of the sun is not strong enough to keep all that perpetually exploding gas to the surface. So that's where it's just sort of a vacuum or something else.
I just heard the mumblings of sort of a vacuum. Sorry, what's the black bit again?
It's a lower pressure zone.
Vacuum of space.
Oh, really? That's a bit of a problem, isn't it? So you've got this gas ball in a vacuum, you say? That's fascinating. Also a violation of natural law. Any other comments on this image that Arwen's got up? Yeah, space is fake. Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Arwen.
Oh, you're welcome. There's more pictures, by the way.
I don't know if we need them. I'd rather just plug Paula's channel. Go and subscribe to Bible Literalist and check out her cosmology playlist. You're still presenting if you want to stick stuff up. You're still presenting anyway if you want to. If I see something nice,
look at that. That's so real, man.
Where's the balloon?
Well, what? The one on
it's supposed to be astrophotography here, but they put this in here. Are they actually claiming that's a photograph? I wouldn't hope for them.
That's a cartoon.
Well, that one on the left, it's got stars. Astronaut says you can't see the stars.
That could be a problem.
Well,
very
that's
nice.
The astronaut say that.
A very nice story.
Yeah. Well, this website seems to be full of them.
So what is this again? Star Wars?
No, this is Astrophotography.
Oh, this is
from
the one that
Pierre
pretends to be.
Negol.
This isn't the one where they overtly make it clear that it's not real. This is the one where they pretend it is real. Not Star Wars, but heliocentrism. I see.
Ooh. They got some moon stuff here as well.
Yeah, you're paying.
No, what I'm seeing here doesn't look very photographish. They don't seem to have any problem putting just diagrams in there as well. What's this? Planets.
And so, what's their explanation for how the first particles that make up the sun came together?
Oh, shout out to Chocolate Saying. So Chocolate
Yeah.
Saying would say words to the effect of a massive shout out to those gas particles that decided to violate natural law and, come together and be bonded where most gases aren't, and, not expand to fill the available volume but coalesce together. Shout out to those particles. You're pioneers.
They're the rebel gas particles.
That
If I'm still
decided to stay
presenting,
on
this is
Earth
supposed to be
just because
Venus.
they prefer it here.
Say again, Ramscorp. I've got you on screen, Arwin. Venus, got you.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Ramscorp.
Yeah, I was just saying what Chocolate says about the gas particles preferring to stay on Earth because I don't know, they like it here or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're sentient, these gas particles. They're like, I like it here. This is great. You know what? I know there's that law of nature, but I'm like Agent Smith. I should be compelled, but I'm just gonna defy it. I feel compelled to stay here. These sentient gas particles, that's what they thought and decided to do, because they're rebellious gas particles.
And they convinced a whole bunch of other gas particles to do the same thing.
Yeah, isn't it fun to anthropomorphise gas?
Okay.
Hey, Arwin, you want to see something really ridiculous? Type in star trail picture from the ISS and show that.
No thanks. Those are all registered images anyway.
Well, you could still show it.
So this is what Uranus looks like. Okay.
Did you want to present something, Gentleman?
Well, I don't have the means with my setup here, but I do look at star trails and studied how photographers said that they're possible to even take. You have to have a tripod. The place your camera is on, the tripod has to be stationary. It can't be moving. And then you get the nice circle of the star trails with Polaris in the middle. Then the ISS guy, I forget which astronaut, Hatfield or one of them, posts these pictures of the star trails from the ISS. And it shows the Earth rotating with similar trails. Because the Earth is rotating, they have to show that with the streaking lights going one direction. And then above that is the star trails. It's the most phoniest picture I've ever seen. Because all you got to do is be on that Earth and realize that if you were taking that same star trail picture at the same time that the supposed astronaut was, then you would have sideways streaks on your star trails just like they're showing from the ISS. Because it would show the movement of the Earth. It doesn't, because the Earth doesn't move. And then I looked at people who were doing pictures from their car going at high speeds, and relative to the picture of all the streak lights coming at them, the image of the car, the dashboard, wasn't streaking. It was just solid, still, like a still shot. But then you look at the camera of the person, because it was I'm sorry, the phone in the passenger seat, and you could see the image on the phone was streaking. So any movement, just like if you were taking a picture and you accidentally jolted to the right, your picture would come in blurry. This is, to me, slam dunk proof that what they show with the star trails in space and the Earth rotation as streaks is a total phony picture. No photographer would ever say that's possible.
Stuff. Anybody else got anything to add?
Yeah, I'm just watching at these images that are noted as being taken with cameras, though. But yeah, it is very mysterious. I'm looking at, especially, there does seem to be this apparent shadow-like effect on the ring. And another thing is that the ring never really surrounds the planet. You never get to look straight on top of it. But it does seem to narrow down, like the most bottom picture one. So you do get a little bit more equatorial if you're going to presume it's actually a globe. But yeah, fascinating. Fascinating, weird Saturn.
What's the best way to answer the question that I hear from some globies saying, why can't we see Polaris anywhere on the flat plane if it is a flat plane?
Oh, we can. I can see Polaris.
Yeah, me too.
What about from the more southern regions?
Like appears like it's getting too far away, as in it gets closer and closer to the horizon until you can't see it anymore.
So it does diffract the same way
I don't know what the
anything
stars
does on
are.
the horizon.
I don't know. That's my best answer. Gotta know what they are first, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So on that note, I'm going to say I'm going to do a couple of special shout outs and a plug, because you can now become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. So if you are watching this on a PC, then there is a join button. So smash that join button, and an extra special shout out to Colin Dresser and Eagle Plane and Anchor, who are my unicorn and lion of the chat members to date. So massive shout out to both of you. As I say, stay tuned if you are watching on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you're watching this live on the Nathan Oakley 1980 channel, then this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making this live show possible, and of course a massive thank you to all of you in the live stream audience for smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on the premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video. Happy New Year.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!